Okay guys, about to swap out this distributor on a 2004 Xterra. Just a couple of quick tips here. So first you have to disconnect this connector here. I slide it off of this little metal bracket you can see here to get a little better access. And you'll see there's a green tab you need to push in. That's to disconnect it from this side here. And then of course we disconnected the other one. That's the only two electrical connectors here. And then the other important thing, before you take the old one out, make sure that this rotor is at top dead center for the number 1. So you can see this bolt my socket is on right now. That's the bolt that holds the distributor in. And also it's the bolt you use to turn the distributor when you're doing the timing adjustment. But I just want to show how I'm accessing it. So I got kind of a pretty long extension here. And then I've got a swivel socket. And this is a 12mm bolt, so that kind of helps to snake it down in there and be able to get it, because you can see with the tubes there, it's kind of difficult to get to. And I can just break it loose and get it out there. And make sure you grab that with a magnet. Once you get it backed out, you don't want it to fall down and kind of get stuck in between the valve covers or kind of buried under the intake there. So one thing Nissan tries to warn us about here is there are 3 marks. This indent, just ignore that. You want to look for the protruding mark and the circle mark to line them up before you install it. So what that looks like here, here's the circle mark, there's the protruding mark, and then just ignore this guy. So if you have the circle and this one lined up, you're going to be off just enough where it's probably going to run, but you're not going to be able to get it timed. So if you're having trouble once you get it all back together and it just won't stay running and you just can't get it timed, just check that, take it back out, make sure that the protruding mark and the circle are the two that are aligned. So you can see my empty space here now where I've got the distributor out, and here's my new one in that's going in. And you can see this is a Nissan remanufactured direct from the dealer. I highly recommend not going cheap on the distributor. The old one I'm replacing was only a few months old. It was just a cheap, not OE unit. Okay, you can see I got the new one now installed. One optional step is you can use non-permanent thread locker on the screws for both the cap and both for the rotor. Here, I'll show you on the old one. On that screw there on the back of the rotor. The reason I say that is on 2 different vehicles I've had that screw back out and the rotor to come loose underneath the cap while the car was driving. So that's kind of an optional step there. And I purposely left all my wires here on the old cap. Luckily these NGKs are numbered, makes it a little easier, but just in case you have some maybe just plain black ones that are not numbered, you might want to take a moment to just use some tape to do that. Or like I'm going to do, I'm just going to line it up here and do one by one, transfer them over. Okay, we're getting ready to time it here. So you see I've got my timing light set up. And if you don't have a timing light, you can rent these from most auto parts stores. And I've left my distributor loose so that I can make the adjustment there. The bolt isn't tightened down yet. But this is straight out of the XTERRA factory service manual. You can see the procedure there, but it's basically run the engine at 2,000 RPMs for 2 minutes under no load, and then rev it a couple times, 2,000 to 3,000 RPMs, and make sure that the throttle position sensor is disconnected. I've got that disconnected here. It's the one on the bottom there. When you disconnect it, you see that white insert? I've had that fall out before, so just make sure you catch it. If you face it down, make sure it doesn't get stuck down there in the engine bay. And then, depending if you have manual or automatic, it's whether you need to be in neutral or Parker neutral, of course, but really the timing is about the same on that. It's 10 degrees plus or minus 5. And we're going to be looking at the crank position marks down there, and that's on the diagram, but I'll show you here in real life. You can kind of see it down there. Those are the marks we're going to be using to get it timed up. Okay, so all back together. She's running fine. She's idling smooth at right about 750 RPMs, and the engine's warmed up and everything. A couple pitfalls you might run into. My rotor was not quite aligned to top dead center, so when I had put the distributor down in there, it was actually off just a little bit. So if you run into that where you don't get it on the first shot and you have to pull it back out, to get it at top dead center, it's not that difficult. I just removed the number 1 plug, which is very easy to get to right here, and then using a screwdriver, or in this case I actually used I used a chopstick, and just rotate the crank and you'll see it bob up and down, and when it bobs all the way to the top, you know it's at top dead center. So set that manually there and try again and realign your marks.